Rancher found a woman sleeping in his barn. She said, "Please let me stay just one night." Rancher found a woman sleeping in his barn. She said, "Please let me stay just one night." The lantern swung in Dale Cooper's hand as he pushed open the barn door at midnight, and the light caught her before she could hide. A woman curled against the hay bales in the far corner, her knees pulled to her chest, her shoes held together by a strip of duct tape. Her eyes wide and white with fear the way a cornered deer goes still before it bolts. He almost dropped the lantern. In 22 years of working this land outside Harlan, Kentucky, Dale had found a lot of things in his barn that did not belong there. A neighbor's bull twice, a fox with a broken leg, his own father sleeping off a bad night once long ago. He had never found a woman. She did not run. That surprised him more than her being there. She pulled her knees tighter and looked at him with eyes that had been crying for a long time, not recently, not fresh tears, but the kind of eyes that had done so much crying they forgot how to look any other way. She was young, maybe 30, maybe less. Her hair was dark and matted at one side from sleeping on it. Her coat was a thin canvas thing, wrong for October, wrong for the cold that had been sitting on the valley for a week. Dale stood in the doorway a long moment. "You need to tell me who you are," he said. His voice came out quieter than he intended. "Please." Her voice was barely a sound. "Please let me stay just one night. I will leave before sunrise. You will not even know I was here." He looked at her hands. They were shaking, not from cold alone. "I already know you're here," he said. She flinched at that. Dale had a way of reading situations the way a farmer reads weather, not by any single sign but by the accumulation of small things. The duct-taped shoes, the pack by her side that was too light, barely full. The way she had positioned herself in the corner, so she could see both the main door and the side window at once. The fact that she had not screamed when he walked in, had not called for help, had not threatened him, which meant she was more afraid of whoever might hear her than she was afraid of him. That told him almost everything. "There's no heat in here," he said. "Temperature's dropping to 34 tonight." She did not answer. "I'm not going to call anyone," he said. He watched her face shift slightly at that, the way a fist slowly opens. "But I am not letting you freeze in my barn either. Come up to the house. You can sleep on the couch. Door stays unlocked from the inside." She stared at him. "Why?" she said. It was a reasonable question. Dale thought about it honestly. "Because you said one night," he said. "And nobody asks for just one night unless one night is all they think they deserve." She looked at him for a long time after that. The lantern light moved between them. Outside, the wind moved through the old oak at the east fence the way it always did in October, a low sound like something breathing. Her name was Carla. She told him that much on the walk to the house and nothing else, and he did not push. She sat at his kitchen table while he heated up leftover soup from the pot on the stove. She watched his hands the entire time, not him, his hands, making sure they stayed where she could see them. He understood that too, without needing it explained, and he kept his movements slow and visible the way you do around a spooked horse. She ate the soup without speaking. He sat across from her with a cup of coffee and did not try to make conversation, because some silences are not uncomfortable, they are necessary. When she finished, she set the spoon down carefully like it was borrowed. "I haven't eaten today," she said, as if this required an explanation. "I figured," he said. She looked at the table. "I'm not a bad person." "I didn't say you were. People assume. Some people assume a lot of things." Dale wrapped both hands around his coffee mug. "I try not to be one of them." She looked up at him then, really looked, and he got the full weight of those eyes, a specific kind of tired that is not about sleep at all, the kind that comes from carrying something too heavy for too long across too much distance. He showed her the couch. He got a blanket from the cedar chest. He put a glass of water on the side table without being asked. "The bathroom is down the hall," he said. "Lock on the door works from the inside. I'll be in the room at the far end. I will not come out until morning unless the house is on fire." She almost smiled, not quite. "Thank you," she said. It came out raw, like the word cost her something to say. Dale nodded and went to his room. He did not sleep for a long time. He lay on top of the covers and listened to the house settle, the way it always did at night, the creaks and pops of old wood, the wind working at the windows. At some point he heard the bathroom faucet run for a long time. Then quiet again. He thought about the way she'd asked. "Please let me stay just one night, not 2 nights. Not help me, not I have nowhere to go, one night." Like she had already made peace with everything after that, and the only thing she was still fighting for was this one small thing. Dale was a practical man. He had no patience for drama and no fondness for complications. He ran 300 acres alone since his wife Carol passed 4 years ago, kept the books clean, the fences tight, the animals healthy. His life had a shape to it that he understood. He lay in the dark and felt that shape shift slightly, the way ground shifts before rain gets to it. By the time he finally slept, he had already decided he was not going to hold her to sunrise. Morning came gray and cold. Dale was up at 5:30 the way he always was, boots on the porch steps, coffee in hand. He expected the couch to be empty. It was not. Carla was sitting up, the blanket folded neatly on the cushion beside her, her pack on her lap, fully dressed and ready to leave. She had been waiting for him to come out first, he realized, waiting for permission or for proof that he meant what he said. He handed her the second cup of coffee he had already made. She took it with both hands. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "It's coffee," he said. "It's not a big thing." "It is," she said quietly. "It really is." Dale looked at her in the early light coming through the kitchen window. This woman with her duct-tape shoes and her borrowed spoon manners and her eyes that had seen too much of the wrong kind of things. And he said the words that would change both their lives in ways neither of them could have mapped that morning. "There's fence work that needs doing on the east pasture," he said. "If you need a few more days, I could use the help." She looked at him like he had said something in a language she had almost forgotten she knew. "You don't know anything about me," she said. "No," he agreed. "But I know you folded the blanket." She looked at the neatly folded blanket beside her. She looked back at him. "I can work," she said. "I know you can," he said. "That's why I asked." The east fence had been failing since August. 3 posts had rotted clean through at the base, and 2 sections of wire had gone slack where the oak roots pushed up through the ground every year like they owned the place, which Dale privately thought they probably did. He gave Carla a pair of Carol's old work gloves and did not make a comment about them fitting or not fitting, and she put them on without a word and picked up the post driver like she had used one before. She had. That surprised him. He watched her position her feet, watched her read the ground before she committed the post, watched her drive it with short, efficient strokes instead of the long, wild swings most beginners used. She knew what she was doing. "You've done fence work," he said. "My grandfather had land," she said. "In Missouri." She did not offer anything beyond that. He did not ask. They worked through the morning in the kind of quiet that forms between two people who are both comfortable with silence and both aware of the other person's comfort in it. The cold sat on them, and the oak leaves came down one at a time in the still air, and the cattle in the far pasture moved slowly across the brown grass the way they always did in October, unhurried and certain. Around 11, Dale's neighbor pulled up in his truck along the county road, an older man named Pete Garland who ran the property to the north, and who had a gift for showing up when Dale least needed company. Pete leaned out his window. "Got yourself some help," he said, looking at Carla with the particular kind of look that wanted to be a question. "Fence crew," Dale said, and turned back to the wire. Pete sat in his truck a moment longer than was polite, then drove on. Carla kept her eyes on the post she was tamping, but Dale noticed her shoulders, which had gone tight the moment the truck slowed, and did not loosen fully until it was gone from sight. At noon, he made sandwiches. She ate hers standing at the kitchen counter, looking out the window toward the road, and he understood that she was watching it, and he understood why, and he said nothing about it. "How long have you been moving?" he said. She chewed, swallowed. 11 days. "From where?" A pause, not evasion, calculation, what was safe to say. "Clarksburg," she said, "West Virginia." That was 400 miles, more or less, on foot or close to it by the look of her shoes. 11 days is a long time to be on the road, he said. "It's long enough," she said. He watched her profile, the line of her jaw, the way she kept her chin level like levelness was a discipline she had trained herself into. "Nobody's looking for you on a missing persons report," he said. It was not a question. She turned and looked at him directly for the first time since the barn. Her eyes were very dark and very steady. "No," she said. "Okay," he said. He cleared the plates. That afternoon, while Carla finished the last section of wire, Dale went into town for supplies. He took longer than he needed to. He drove the county road slowly and thought about what he was doing, which was a thing Carol used to tease him about, his need to examine a decision from every angle after he had already made it. He had already made it. He knew that. He bought groceries for two. He did not analyze that. He also stopped at the hardware store and bought a new deadbolt for the spare room door, the kind that locks from the inside with a key that he would give to her, so she would have it, so she would know she had it. That part he did analyze. He stood in the hardware store aisle for 4 full minutes, turning the package over in his hands, aware of what it meant and what it did not mean and what it would communicate to her when he handed it over. He bought it. When he got home, she was sitting on the porch steps, the work gloves on the rail beside her, looking out at the pasture. The fence line was clean, every post straight, every wire taut, better than he had done it in years. He sat down on the step below her. "You can stay," he said, "as long as you need, no obligation, no conditions." She was quiet for a moment. "People don't do that," she said. "I just did," he said. "Why?" He thought about it the way he thought about things, honestly, without decoration. "Because you needed it," he said, "and I have the room and the fence needed doing." He paused. "And Carol would have fed you herself if she'd found you first. She had better food than me." Carla looked at him. "Carol, my wife," he said. "She passed 4 years ago." Something moved in Carla's face. Not pity, something more careful than that. Recognition, maybe. The particular understanding of someone who also knew what it was to lose the person who made a place feel like home. "I'm sorry," she said. "Thank you," he said, and meant it without weight. The sun was going down behind the ridge, pulling the color out of everything slowly, leaving that blue-gray October dusk that Dale had always thought was the most honest light of any season. Nothing hidden in it, nothing softened. "There's a room at the end of the hall," he said. He held up the deadbolt package. "I bought this today. You'd have the only key." She looked at the package for a long time. Her hands, resting on her knees, were still for the first time since he had known her. "My name isn't Carla," she said. He nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. "It's Lucy," she said. "Lucy Dean." "Dale Cooper," he said, though she already knew that. They sat on the porch steps in the blue-gray light while the cattle settled for the evening and the oak at the east fence did its breathing sound. And neither of them said anything else for a while, because some things do not need to be said to be understood. Lucy Dean had not planned to tell him her real name. She had not planned any of this. Not the barn, not the soup, not the fence work, not the deadbolt sitting in her palm like a small, solid promise she did not know if she was allowed to keep. She had not planned much of anything in 11 days, which was itself a kind of plan. Moving without destination. Sleeping in bus station chairs, under highway overpasses, once in the unlocked cab of a parked truck outside a diner in Hazard. The barn had been the warmest, and she had let herself rest longer than she meant to, and then the lantern had come through the door. She had expected a different kind of man. The world had given her a particular education about what happened when men found women alone and vulnerable in dark places, and the curriculum had been thorough. Dale was not that kind of man. She had known it within minutes, not because of what he said, but because of what he did not do. He had not stepped closer, had not raised his voice, had not asked questions that were really accusations dressed up in question marks. He had stood in the doorway with his lantern and his quiet voice and his completely unperformed concern, and something in her chest, some wire that had been drawn tight for so long she had stopped noticing the tension, had shifted. She had been terrified anyway. Fear is not rational, fear is a habit, but she had told him her name. She lay on the narrow bed in the spare room that night, the spare room that smelled of cedar and clean laundry, and faintly of a woman's perfume that must have been Carol's, and she held the deadbolt key in one hand and looked at the ceiling. The lock was engaged. She had done that first, the moment he closed the door behind him, tested it twice. It held. And then she had sat on the edge of the bed and done something she had not done in a long time. She had let herself feel safe just for a moment, like testing the temperature of water before getting in. It didn't burn. She cried a little after that. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a few slow tears that came out like pressure releasing from a valve. The kind of crying that is not grief but relief. And relief can feel almost worse than grief because you have to believe something good happened to cry that way. She had not let herself believe anything good in a long time. Her name was Lucy Dean, and she was 28 years old, and 3 weeks ago she had packed one bag at 2 in the morning while the man she had been living with slept, and she had walked out the door of that apartment in Clarksburg with $53 and a bus ticket to the first town on the departures board, which turned out to be Beckley. She had not looked back. She had not called anyone. She had not filed anything or reported anything or done any of the things that people who have not been in that situation assume you do, because those people did not understand what he had told her he would do if she tried, and they did not understand that she believed him, and they did not understand that sometimes disappearing is the only way to survive. 11 days. Approximately 370 miles on foot, on buses when she had the money, in the back of a pickup truck for 40 miles when a farm woman named Dot had pulled over on Route 119 and said she looked like she needed a ride more than she needed to explain herself. There had been 2 Dots and maybe 1 Dale in 11 days. The rest of the world had looked through her like she was already gone. She had started to believe maybe she was. The farm was quiet in a way the city never was. Not silent, there was the wind, the cattle sounds, the house itself breathing in the cold, but quiet in the way that meant nothing was chasing you through it. Lucy lay in the dark and let her ears adjust to that quiet and felt her heartbeat slowly stop, measuring the distance between one sound and the next. She slept before she meant to. She woke to the smell of coffee and bacon, and for one confused second she did not know where she was, and her body went rigid with the familiar voltage of not knowing. Then she heard the cattle. Then she saw the ceiling with its water stain in the shape of something that might have been a running horse. Then she remembered the key, still in her hand from the night before, pressed into her palm. She held it up and looked at it in the morning light. Dale was in the kitchen when she came out. He did not look up from the stove. He said, "Eggs," in the same tone he might use to say the weather. "Yes," she said. "Thank you. Coffee's on the counter." She poured it and stood at the window again. The road was empty. The oak tree at the east fence threw a long shadow across the frost-white grass. The sky was the pale, thin blue of a cold, clear morning, the kind that looks beautiful on purpose. "I need to tell you something," she said. "You don't have to," Dale said. "I know," she wrapped her hands around the mug. "I want to." He turned the burner down and leaned against the counter and looked at her, not with the focused hunger of someone who wants information, but with the particular attention of someone who is simply willing to listen, which is rarer than people think. "I left someone," she said. "He doesn't know where I am. He will be looking." She paused. "He is not a safe person." Dale was quiet for a moment. "Okay," he said. "That's it," she said. "What else would there be?" She looked at him. "Most people want to know more. Most people want the whole story. Most people want to feel like they understand a situation before they decide how to handle it," Dale said. He turned back to the eggs. "I already know how I'm handling it. You staying here doesn't change based on the details." Lucy stood at the window with her coffee. Outside, the frost was already melting off the grass in the places where the sun touched it, turning it back to green. "He is thorough," she said. "He will search." "This is a big county," Dale said, "and I have been living in it long enough that the people here know me and mine. That counts for something." He slid the eggs onto a plate. "We'll figure out the rest as it comes." She turned from the window and sat at the table. She picked up her fork. She ate. And outside, somewhere on the county road, a vehicle slowed as it passed the mailbox at the end of the gravel drive. Just for a moment, the way a vehicle does when the driver is reading a name on a box, and then it moved on. Neither of them saw it. Dale saw the car on the third day. It was not a local car. In a county where he could identify most vehicles by make and owner, and approximate reason for being on any given road at any given hour, a dark blue sedan with West Virginia plates was a flag planted in ground he could not ignore. It passed the property twice on Tuesday. Slow both times. He did not tell Lucy immediately. He watched first. That was his way, collect the full picture before you speak, because words change the air in a room and you cannot take them back. He told her Tuesday evening after supper while they were sitting on the porch in the last of the daylight. He said it plainly, the way he said everything. "Dark blue sedan, West Virginia plates, passed the drive twice today going slow." He watched her face. She did not panic. That was the first thing. Her jaw tightened and her hands went still in her lap, but her eyes went careful and calculating rather than wild. And he understood in that moment that this was not a new experience for her, the being found, the being tracked, and that she had learned how to manage her fear so. It did not manage her. "How slow," she said. "Reading a mailbox slow." She nodded, looked at the road. "It might not be him," she said. "He doesn't drive blue." "Cars can be borrowed," Dale said. "Yes," she said. They sat with that. "What do you want to do?" he said. Not what do you need, not what should we do, what do you want. She noticed the difference. She had learned to notice differences. I don't want to run again, she said. The honesty of it cost her something. He could see that. Then we don't run, he said. She looked at him. You don't know what you're saying. I've been managing this land through bad weather, bad markets, and bad neighbors for over 2 decades, Dale said. I'm not afraid of a man in a borrowed car. You should be, she said quietly. He made 3 people afraid enough that not one of them talked. Dale let that sit between them. 3 people, he said. Yes. He leaned forward with his elbows on his knees and looked at the road. Then we don't do this alone, he said. The next morning he drove into town and walked into the county sheriff's office and asked for Bill Archer, who he had known since they were both 17 and had never given Dale a reason not to trust him in the 40 years since. Bill came out of his office with coffee in hand and the look of a man who expected to hear about a fence dispute. Dale did not waste his time. He laid out what he knew. A woman, Harlan County, fled a dangerous situation in Clarksburg, West Virginia, staying at his property. Dark blue sedan with WV plates running slow past his drive. He gave Bill the name she had given him, the name of the man from Clarksburg. He did not explain how he had gotten it. Lucy had written it on a piece of paper at breakfast without being asked, had slid it across the table with steady hands, and had said, "In case you need it." He had needed it. Bill wrote it down. His face shifted in the way faces shift when something clicks into a file they already have. You know this name? Dale said. I know some people who might, Bill said. That was enough. Dale drove home along the county road. A mile from the property, he passed the dark blue sedan parked on the gravel shoulder facing the opposite direction, engine running. He drove past it without slowing, did not look at the driver, noted the plates. When he got home, Lucy was at the kitchen table with both hands flat on the surface and her eyes on the window. It's parked down the road, she said. I know, he said. I called in the plates before I left town. She looked at him. It's not him driving, Dale said. The car is registered to a woman named Patris Boone, Clarksburg address. Lucy closed her eyes for one long second. His sister, she said. She's doing reconnaissance for him. That's what he does, Lucy said. He doesn't come himself until he knows the ground. Dale pulled out a chair and sat down. Bill Archer is reaching out to the Clarksburg PD today, he said. There is apparently more on this man than you might know about. She opened her eyes. They were very clear. How much more? She said. Enough, he said. You are not the only person who left. She absorbed that. The surface of her was still, completely still, but something underneath it was moving. He could see it the way you see current under ice, not the current itself, but the shape the surface makes above it. I thought I was, she said. He told me I was. He was wrong, Dale said. She looked at her hands. They all think they're the only one, she said, and she was not talking about herself anymore, not entirely. Outside, the dark blue sedan stayed parked for another 40 minutes. Then it pulled out and drove north, back toward the state line. Dale watched it go from the kitchen window. Lucy sat at the table behind him. The house was very quiet. She'll report back, Lucy said. Let her, Dale said. By the time he acts on what she says, Bill will have made his calls. Lucy was quiet for a moment. You trust this sheriff? I've trusted him since we were 17, and he talked me out of a very stupid decision involving a creek and a borrowed boat, Dale said. He's never steered me wrong. She almost laughed, not quite, but almost. That night she asked him about Carol. They were at the table after supper, and the question came out the way real questions do, not as a topic change or a deflection, but as a genuine opening toward another person, the kind of opening that costs something. Dale talked about Carol for a long time. He talked about the way she laughed, which was too loud for how small she was. The way she kept a garden that she was convinced she could grow watermelons in, despite Kentucky's persistent opposition to that idea. The way she had reorganized his barn 3 times in the span of their marriage until it was exactly right and then declared it done, and it had stayed done. The way she died, quickly at least, a thing he was grateful for even through all the grief of it, a mercy and a merciless fact. Lucy listened the way she listened to everything, completely, without interruption, with her full attention. She sounds like someone who made a room brighter just by being in it, she said. She made the whole county brighter, Dale said. I'm still finding dark corners. He said it without self-pity as a plain observation, and she received it that way. The spare room, she said. It still smells like her. I know, he said. I've left it that way, she nodded. I'm glad you did, she said. The next morning, Bill Archer called. Clarksburg PD had opened a formal investigation. 2 other women had already given statements. The man's name was now on a document in an office in a file with weight to it. Dale told Lucy at breakfast. She sat with her coffee cup in both hands and looked at the table for a long time. He'll know I talked, she said. You didn't talk, Dale said. I did. It's the same to him. Maybe, Dale said, but it's not the same to the law, she nodded slowly. The frost was heavy outside. The sun was just beginning to work on it, and the pasture was changing color the way it did every clear morning, gray to silver to pale green to itself. I have a question, she said. Go ahead. Do you want me to leave? Dale looked at her. No, he said plainly, without decoration. She picked up her fork. Okay, she said. She ate breakfast. The cattle were moving in the far pasture. The oak at the east fence threw its long shadow over the clean new wire. The frost was almost gone. The call from Bill Archer came on a Friday morning, 9 days after Lucy Dean had walked out of a barn and into a kitchen and into a life she had not planned on. Dale was replacing a water line in the south field when his phone rang, and he listened to Bill's voice for 3 minutes, then said, I understand, and hung up, and finished tightening the coupling he was working on before he walked back to the house. She was in the barn. Not hiding, working. She had spent the last 4 days reorganizing the tool wall in the way Carol used to reorganize it, with that same particular logic of someone who has looked at a disorderly system long enough to see what it wanted to be. Dale had noticed this and not said anything about it because some things are better received in silence. She looked up when he came in. She read his face. Tell me, she said. They brought him in this morning, Dale said. Clarksburg PD with a warrant. 3 formal statements and enough corroborating evidence from his sister's phone records to make bail unlikely. Lucy stood with a wrench in her hand. She did not cry. He had expected, maybe, that she would. She did not. She stood in the middle of the barn with the wrench at her side and breathed long, slow, deliberate breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth, the way a person breathes when they are managing the size of something. It's real, she said, not a question. It's real, he said. She nodded, turned the wrench over in her hands, put it on the correct hook on the wall. What happens now? She said. They'll want a statement from you at some point, Dale said. Bill says there's no rush, but it will strengthen the case. I know, she said. You don't have to decide that today. I know, she said again. She looked at the tool wall. I want to finish this first. Okay, he said. He picked up a length of rope that needed recoiling and sat on an overturned bucket and let her work. She moved down the wall methodically, hanging and adjusting, and the only sound was the tools finding their places and the cattle outside and the wind doing its slow work in the oak. After a while she said, I need to think about what comes after. After him being in custody, Dale said. After all of it, she said. I have been moving for so long I don't know how to be somewhere. He thought about that. You've been somewhere for 9 days, he said. She paused in her work. I have, she said. Seems like you know how, he said. She was quiet a long moment. Then she went back to the wall. She finished it 2 hours later, and it was right. He could see that immediately, everything exactly where it should be, the logic of it clear and clean, the way a well-built thing always makes you wonder why it wasn't always that way. Carol would have liked your system, he said. Lucy looked at the wall for a moment. Tell me about her system, she said. He did. For the rest of the afternoon, while they did the feeding rounds and checked the water troughs and walked the fence line one more time before the temperature dropped, he told her about Carol's systems. The barn, the kitchen, the garden, the filing cabinet in the office where everything had its precise and labeled place. He told her about the watermelon experiment, which had failed beautifully every single year for a decade, and which Carol had treated each time as new and exciting information rather than defeat. Lucy laughed at the watermelon story. A real laugh, not a polite one, the laugh of someone who has not laughed in long enough that they forgot what it felt like coming out. It was, Dale thought, a very good sound. The day settled into evening. They sat on the porch steps in the cold with coffee, which had become, without either of them naming it, their end-of-day thing. The sky went through its colors, the cattle settled, the oak breathed. I'd like to stay, Lucy said, if that's still what you're offering. It is, he said. I can work, she said. I don't want to just be kept. I never thought that, he said. I've seen you with a post driver. You're not someone who needs keeping. She looked at the fence line. The new wire caught the last light. I'm going to give a statement, she said. I'm going to do it right. I know you are. It will be hard. I know that too, she nodded. They sat in the cooling air while the stars came out one at a time over the ridge, the way they always did in October. Not all at once, but slowly, each one arriving as if it had been considering whether to show up, and then decided yes, tonight it would. 3 weeks earlier, Lucy Dean had packed a bag at 2 in the morning and walked out a door and kept walking because stopping felt like dying. She had asked for one night in a barn on a cold Tuesday and been given more than she knew how to name yet. Dale Cooper had found a woman in his barn and given her soup and a blanket and a key to a door, and in return had found that his house, which had been very quiet in a way that was not always peaceful, was starting to sound different in the evenings. 11 days of running. 9 days of staying, the math of a life turning a corner. The oak at the east fence threw no shadow in the dark. The pasture was invisible beyond the reach of the porch light. Somewhere out on the county road, no dark blue sedan rolled slow past the mailbox. I didn't believe there were people like you, Lucy said. Dale was quiet a moment. There are more than you think, he said. You just ended up in the wrong places for a while. She looked at her coffee cup. I found the right one, she said. He did not answer that. He did not need to. The stars kept arriving over the ridge one at a time, steady and unhurried, each one deciding yes. Tonight it would show up. Tonight was enough.